Hello guys, welcome back to a new episode of creating your roleplay Samp server. It's been a long time, let's get straight to the point. In today's video I'll show you how to make a dynamic rent system where you can create and remove rent places and rent vehicles from that places, as you can see in this preview. The first thing we need to make is create a new table in our database named rents. We need 5 columns. The first column will be the ID, which will be auto incremented, and we will put unsigned attribute and we'll put unsigned attribute. This will make the numbers to be always positive. As you can see, it will go from 0 to 4 billion. The next one is the coordinates x, y and z, which will be float, and the coordinates cannot be unsigned because we have negative coordinates, and the angle that the rent place will be rotated at, also a float type. We can save that. Now let's open up the script and implement few things. The first thing I want to implement is the dialog. Dialog rent options as the number 7. After that we'll define the max rent places, let's say to 50. You can change this as you want by your liking. And let's create an enum. We can call it rents info. The first thing is going to be the rent ID, then the rent coordinates, and the rent angle, and a boolean to see if it's built, if the rent is built. Also we need now now let's create a few variables. New rents info with max rents and the rents info. A new rent object max rents. This will be the here in this variable we'll store the ID of the created object, so we can modify it and everything. Then rent edit ID of max players. To here we'll store which rent, like rent object, the player is editing. Number of rents, to see how many rents are created, and if it's equal to 50, then we can't create any more. I mean, if it's equal to the max rents, we can't create any more, and I need to put an S there. Then text 3D of rent text max players. My mistake, max rents. Here we'll display like a text, press that key for that. Then rent pickup. In a new line you can do this. Also max rents. Then a boolean rent exists in database. Max rents. This will indicate if the rent has a row in the database. This will be important later when we save the database so we can check if it exists in the database. If the rent exists in the database, we are going to update the already existing line. Else, we are just going to remove that line. Else, we are just going to create a new row. And rents loaded. This I'm going to explain the difference between these two later, but you have to have them both. Then renting max layers, rent timer max players, and player text 3D rent timer text label max players. The renting will store the vehicle ID of which vehicle the player is renting. The rent timer will store how many seconds of rent time the players left, and the rent timer text label will show the seconds on the vehicle that's of the player that's renting it. We can make the timer now. Let's add ptask rent update timer with a repentance of with a loop of 1 second and the player ID attribute. We'll check if the renting of the player ID isn't equals to -1. If it's equals to -1, then he isn't renting any vehicle. So he needs to rent some vehicle for this to show. Then we are gonna make a new text of 64, format it, and put something like the color and rent timer. New line, let's make it white and put the rent timer of the player ID. Then we're gonna delete the player 3D text label, because if we don't delete the previous, it's gonna stack one onto another and it's gonna cause lag and it won't be readable. We need to remove this one and make the new one. We need to create a player 3D text label so it doesn't show to other players. This auto completion is by an extension, Pound Tools here. If you want it, you can download it. It's really helpful. In the text field, we're gonna put the text variable. The color will be -1. The float, the coordinates are going to be 0, and this will make it to be at the center of the vehicle. The draw distance, you can put it as you want, like 5.0, it doesn't really matter. Attach player, we're gonna put invalid player ID, and the attach vehicle, we are gonna put the renting of the player ID. And that's it. Now we can check if the rent timer of the player ID is greater than 0. Then we are gonna reduce the timer. Else we are going to destroy the vehicle. Delete the rent timer text label. Put the renting of the player ID to -1 and send a message. Or we can use the info message function that we created in the previous episode, and tell that your rent period has expired. And that's it for this timer. Now let's go to on game mode init and put the number of rents to 0 and rents loaded also to 0. Now somewhere put a for loop for new I equals 1 and I is less than or equals to max rents I plus plus new string 256. I misspelled it. Let's format it. SQL string size of string select select everything from rents where ID equals to that number, and we're gonna put I and semicolon at the end. Then we are gonna call the T query SQL string load rent, and we're gonna pass the ID. Now let's go and make this load rent function. So we're gonna call a forward first, load rent of ID, and public load rent ID. At the beginning we are gonna increment the rents loaded. Then we're gonna check if cache .num rows is true. This means that this ID has rows in the database, so it means that rent ID is stored in the database. So we're gonna load it from the database onto the server. Cache get value of integer. The first is going to be the ID. So we are storing the ID from the database into the multi-dimensional array of the rents info. Then we're gonna get the coordinates. I'm gonna put this blank so I can copy and paste it like this. Yeah, 4 times is good. Also for the angle, X, Y, Z, and the angle. Be sure to type this in same as in the database, otherwise it won't work. We can also copy and paste this in here, and then just Rx, Ry, Rz, and R angle. And at the end, rents info of the ID are built is equal to true because it exists and it's built. Then we're gonna increment the number of rents by 1. So the number of rents indicates how many rents are built, while the rents loaded is how many rents have we loaded so far. So if the rents loaded is equal to max rents, we can create the objects. We do this in here with the rents loaded because if we call it inside the on game mode init, this this for they get loaded after the on game mode init. So the on game mode init completes everything, then it starts to load it from the database. So we need to do it in here. So we do another for loop from 1 to max rents. We check if rents info I are built. Continue. If if the R build of the ID is false, then we continue. Else, this is just else, you don't need to put else, just else. Rent object of I equals to create object of the ID 4642. You can find some other ID if you like. I like this one. Rents info ID I RX rents, and let's put the coordinates. For the rotation, we're gonna put this 2 to 0 because it's the x and y axis, and let's put the z axis to the angle. Now let's make the pickup. Create pickup with the ID 1318 and type 1. The coordinates which can just copy from here. I personally like to put the rents z-axis to minus 0.7, so it isn't very high, but it isn't touching the ground. It's at some place good. And the virtual world is 0, the default one. Now let's make the 3D text label. The text, you can put it as you want. I'm gonna put 1AC42B rent, new line, white color, and this is going to be the key they need to press to open the rents options. The color will be -1. The coordinates we can just paste from before. The draw distance, you can put it as you want. I'm gonna put it like 10.0. The virtual world is 0, and the test line of sight is 0. That at the end put return 1, and that's it for this forward. Let's go back to on game mode init and scroll a little bit down where we get on player connect. Here we need to put the rent edit ID of the player ID to -1 and the renting of the player ID to -1. These are just safe checks when the player enters on the server. If somehow the renting wasn't set to -1, we set it now, also for the rent edit ID. On player disconnect, we can check if the player was renting a vehicle. If he was renting a vehicle, we destroy the vehicle, renting player ID, and we set the renting of the player ID to -1. We don't need to say any message because he can't read it because he has disconnected from the server. Let's continue. We can also on vehicle debt, we can check. This is a little bit of an exaggeration, but if you want, you can do this. We can check if we can loop all the players first and check if the destroyed vehicle is a rented vehicle. So if the vehicle ID is equal to the ID of anyone that is renting a vehicle, we are gonna destroy the vehicle ID. We are gonna put the renting of the player ID to -1, and we can tell him like maybe use red color, player ID -1, or not player ID but I. Here we need to use I. We're gonna tell him that in red color your rent vehicle has been destroyed, which indicates that he doesn't rent any vehicle anymore. And we are gonna break so the loop doesn't continue. On player enter vehicle, we're gonna put a for loop, new I equals 0. We're gonna put if vehicle ID is equal to renting I, so the vehicle is a rent vehicle and the player isn't in the passenger seat, and the player ID isn't equal to I. So this means that the player that entered the vehicle isn't the owner of the rent. So we are gonna clear his animation, player ID. We are gonna remove the player from the vehicle, and we're gonna show him an error message that he doesn't rent this vehicle. And we're gonna to break it again. Alright, now let's go to the commands and create the create rent command. So create rent of the player ID. We don't need params because there aren't gonna be any arguments. Well, first we need to check if the player admin level is less than 250. They can't use the command if admin level is less than 250, or if number of rents is equal to max rents, then we're gonna return an error message to the player ID. The maximum amount of rents is reached. You can't create any more rents. Or if the player is player in any vehicle, we are gonna say that he can be in vehicle while creating. Okay, that's it. Now let's create a new float x, y, and z. These are gonna be the coordinates of the player and an ID. Get player position, player ID x, y, and z. And the ID is gonna have the value of get unused rent ID, which we are gonna create now. So we can create here like a field for functions. we don't need stock or anything in front, just get unused rent ID. The new ID is gonna be -1 and a boolean token is gonna be equal to false. There we're gonna make a loop to loop through all of the rents, and we're gonna check if the rents info of the I our build is false. Then we're gonna loop through the players to check if some player is already creating a rent with that ID. So if someone is creating, we are gonna set the token to true, and we are gonna break. After this for loop, we're gonna check if the token is false. If the token is false, we set the ID to I and we break. If and it's gonna break, so this for loop is gonna end. It's gonna return the ID, and that's gonna be it. But if it's the token is true, then we're gonna set the token to false, and it's gonna loop all around. Yeah, if all if it loops through all the max rents, I mean if it loops through all the rents and it can't find anything, it's gonna return the ID -1. So in the command we can check if ID is equal to -1, and we are gonna return an error message that we're just gonna copy this one. Just copy this error message that the maximum amount of rents is already created. After that, we're gonna put the rent object of the ID that we got to create an object, same as before, 4642. I'm gonna put the x coordinates to +2, x and y, and the rotation is gonna be 0. Then the rent edit ID of the player ID is gonna be to the rent object of the ID, or we can just put the ID. Yeah, just the ID. We will need just the ID. Then the rent info of the ID of Rx is gonna be Rx +2 to be the same as up here, and also the other coordinates. And the build is going to be false because it's not built yet. And we're gonna enable the editing of this object, and we're gonna show the player and a message: you are creating a rent. And we're gonna return. Now we need another function that is already created, but we need to add it into the script. So you need to type this exactly as it is. So public on player edit object, player ID, player object, object ID, response, float fx, float fy, float fz, float frot x, float frot y, float frot z. So this needs to be exactly the same, uh, and add a return one at the end. So in here we're gonna check if the rent edit ID of the player ID isn't -1 and the response isn't edit response update. The edit response updates is called every time you move an object, so we don't wanna update it every single millisecond. We just wanna update it when the finish is called. So we can make the ID equal to the rent edit ID of the player ID, so we don't type all the time rent edit ID. So rent's info ID of Rx is gonna be fx, and it's the same for all the coordinates. And the coordinate of on the z-axis is gonna be equal to the angle. And we can put the build to true. So now let's copy the where was it? It's I think here. Yeah, we can copy this to the pickup and the text draw, and put it back in here. So it's gonna be the same rent text ID, everything will be the same. We just need to change the y to +2 here, and we also need to change it back there, I forgot, and also this to -0.7. Let's change it here to also that +2 and -0.7. Alright, that's done. So now we need to save the rent ID and to change this to from I to ID, otherwise it won't work. And let's put the rent edit ID of the player ID to -1, so we know he isn't editing any object. Now in the stock we're gonna create the stock save rent ID. We're gonna need two queries, query of 256 and check query of 128. Let's format the check query, size of check query, select everything from rents where ID equals to this. So we're gonna extract everything from the database where the ID is the given ID. MySQL T query, SQL check query, check rent, day and ID. Let's create the check rent forward. This is easy, so just forward forward the check rent ID and public check rent ID. So we're gonna return just one, and we're gonna check if the number of rows is true, which means the rent exists in database, and else we're gonna put rent exists in database ID equals false. and that's it. Let's go back to the stock. We're gonna check if the rent exists in database of the ID is false. This little exclamation mark at the beginning means the different. So if it's like this, then it means true. With this it means false. So if it's false, then we're gonna format the query to insert into rents. We need to make it small letters. The X, the Y, the Z, and the angle with values F, F, all it's F everywhere, and we can put like this. So with this backslash, this is the backslash, not the front, the backslash, we can put it in a new line, so it's a little bit more organized. So rents info of the ID, the first is the X, so we're gonna store the X. I'm just gonna copy this part so I don't write it 100 times. RY, RZ, and R angle. That's it for this creating part. Now we put else. We're gonna copy this part, paste it, and make it update rents set. Delete this part. Set the X equals to F, the Y equals to F, percentage F I mean, the Z equals to percentage F, the angle equals to percentage F. This percentage F is a float where ID equals to this is a digit, and this remains the same. Just at the end put the rents info ID RID, and after the if statement we need to query query the query, SQL query. We don't need the tape, just we can do it like this. So that's it from this save part. Ще дивимося, що треба. Now let's go on player key state change, and else if new keys equal to key no, then he's pressed the end key. We're gonna make a for loop again. From I is less or equal to max rents, I is I plus plus, if is player in a range of point, player ID 2.0, and we're gonna put these coordinates. the coordinates of the rents. The +2 is these coordinates are exactly at the place where the pickup and the text enum are. So if he's 2 units in the distance, we're gonna show player dialog, player ID, the dialog rent options, and dialog style tab list with the caption rent options, and we're gonna put the rent options water. So first I'm gonna put mountain bike. I'm gonna do \t, so this is like 4 spaces to the right of the mountain bike that's set. I'm gonna put $10, so it's gonna cost $10 for the mountain bike. Then I'm gonna add a Fagio, tab 50, Sanchez, tab maybe 100, and let's add a car premiere, $200, and choose or cancel. So we are going to break here, and let's go on dialog response. So now we go to on dialog response, case dialog rent options, and we are going to check if a response has been made. If response, then return 1. If renting player ID isn't -1, so if the renting of the player ID isn't -1, which means he's renting a vehicle, we're gonna return an error. If I can type an error message and tell him you are already renting a vehicle. We can tell him use on rent to stop renting the vehicle. We're gonna get his position, get player position, player ID X, Y, and Z, and we're gonna switch the list item to see which vehicle he choose. So case 0 is gonna be the mountain bike, case 1 is gonna be the scooter, case 2 is gonna be the Sanchez, and case 3 is gonna be the Premier. So we need to check if he has the money to spawn the vehicle and to take his money. So first let's check if player info, player ID, money is less than $10. We're gonna return an error message that says you don't have enough money to rent this vehicle. Let's correct that, and we can copy and paste this everywhere, but we can first make the vehicle. So create a vehicle. The ID for the mountain bike is 510. The currents are gonna be X, Y, and Z. This is the rotation is gonna be 0. The color is gonna be white, and the respawn delay is gonna be 0, 1, so it doesn't respawn. And remove this. We can alter the coordinates like plus 0.5 to spawn it a little bit in the air, and maybe the y-axis +1, but if we change this, it can spawn it inside a wall, so I wouldn't alter this, but it's gonna spawn it on at the top of his head. So maybe let's put like on the epsilon axis +2, and we're gonna take money, player ID $10, and we can copy and paste this in the all cases. And we're just gonna alter the few things. Here is 50 and here is 50. The ID of the scooter is 462. $100 here. The ID is 468. And here is $200 with the ID of 426. 426. After the switch, we can send client message to the player ID, or we're just gonna make an info message. Player ID successfully rented a vehicle for 10 minutes, and let's set his timer to 600, which is 10 minutes in seconds. Now let's make the unrent command. This is easy. We make the command unrent also just player ID, return 1. If renting player ID is equal to -1, then we are gonna return an error message to the player ID: you don't rent a vehicle. Else we are gonna destroy the vehicle. We're gonna delete the player 3D text label. Now we're gonna put the rent timer to 0. This isn't this is optional. You don't have to put the renting of the player ID to -1, and the info message is going to be you stop renting the vehicle, and that's it. Cancel it. And that's all. Let's compile it and see if any errors pop up. There are 4 errors. Let's go to 110. Yeah, we need to erase the test line of sight and compile it again. Oops, it's good. I think I'm gonna get an error. Let's see. Yeah, it was a mistake by pasting that. Let's compile it again. 264. Let's see what's the problem. Not a player ID, but I. 623. I put semicolon here. No, don't need that. Let's compile it again. I see on 944 I have a mistype. Layers. And that's gonna be it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. As you can see, the rents are saved into the database. You can test it yourself if you got any problems. If you got any problems, make sure to join my Discord server where I or some other people can help you with any problems. So stay tuned for the next episode and have a nice day.